Welcome to Culmination, where we're not experts, but we sure have a lot to say. In the process of becoming our best self, I have with me the aspiring film director Sam Bates to discuss extroversion. All right, and with that, let's get started. So, before we get into this is kind of like a duology of sorts with episode 2, or the last episode, where I had James on board to talk about introversion. But now I have one of my good friends and one of his close friends as well to talk about the counterpart. So, starting with that, I'll ask you kind of the same question that I asked James initially. How would you define extroversion?
Well, I think the common definition, that being that, a person who gets, a person who gets their energy from being around small groups of people, or a person who gets their energy from being around large groups of people. I think that works
Mhm.
well to define both. But I've always thought of it more as which one you feel more comfortable with. Like, do you feel more comfortable and I guess more relaxed when you are with a small group of people or an intimate thing, or do you feel more relaxed when you are with a larger group of people? So
Yeah.
I think energy and relaxation. I mean, maybe those are um maybe those are similar, or maybe even the same thing. But I think energy and relaxation both have a lot to do with whether or not you're an introvert or an extrovert.
Yeah. Because it's just kind of how you recharge essentially and like what kind of fuels your energy. So
Yeah.
relaxation does kind of play into that. Where would you say you would fall into? Because in the last episode I kind of hinted that you weren't really like the peak extrovert, but I'm
No,
just
I'm
wondering.
I'm really not.
Yeah.
It depends on the situation. Like, definitely. I think obviously, I don't not get energy, and I don't not feel relaxed around small groups of people. Like one-on-one
Mm,
experiences. I'm completely comfortable with the people that are
sure.
close to me and stuff like that. But I
Yeah.
think it's probably about, if like, okay, if we start at like a base level, right? Um,
Mhm.
like, what? Okay, so 1 to 10. 1 is like super introverted. 10 is super extroverted. I'd say it'd probably be like a 7. I think, if
Okay.
that makes sense, with 5
I
being like
mean,
the
that's
middle
pretty
point.
fair to be honest. Like,
Yeah,
that's pretty
just because,
decent.
like, so for instance, I feel like I can, um, I guess, embarrass myself in front. Like, I'm a lot more comfortable with like being embarrassing in front of large groups of people and stuff like that
Uh-huh.
than people like James would ever be. I think self awareness, or being self conscious about how you portray yourself in front of large groups of people is sort of like an anxiety that a lot of introverts have, that I don't think extroverts share that kind of reservation about that, if that
Yeah.
makes any sense.
That's kind of interesting because there's I forgot who came up with it, but it's kind of a psychology term called de-individuation, where it's essentially the idea where, like, when you feel like you're anonymous, whether you're like in a big group of people like you described, or really like social media, like hiding behind a profile where no one knows who you truly are, you're it's called de-individuation because you feel less accountable for your actions, so you're more likely to feel less embarrassed about what you do, like do more like radical things, like like being angry or yelling, or doing things that you wouldn't normally do
So
because it's
almost
kind
like
of
a
like
mob
part of it.
mentality, sort of.
Yes, that is what the mob mentality is. Because when you're in a group, it's like oh, like I can't really get in trouble because I'm in a group. Like you can't spot me out of all these people. Do you think it's kind of similar to that?
I think so, but I think in the like I think that is a like a symptom, you could say, of
Mhm.
extroversion. But I think the actual definition of extroversion, introversion, has a lot more to do with the individual, and not the way that they get lost in their relationships with people, if that makes sense. Because,
Yeah,
like,
that was kind of like describing that one instance, but
yeah, I
yeah.
guess, yeah. I had an example. But okay, so for instance, I think an extrovert wants as many people to know them, or at least a lot more people to know them
Hmm.
as possible. like most celebrities and stuff are extroverts because they like to be in the spotlight and they like people to know who they are.
Yeah.
Then you still get celebrities, especially a lot of authors, who very much stray away from public eye and only creep out of their caves to share their work once they're finished.
Yeah.
And I think extroverts, having a reputation and I guess just a general, like, as many relationships as possible, regardless of quality,
Yeah.
is probably what a lot of extroverts strive for. Whereas introverts, like James, would much rather have just like a series of much more intimate, like quality over quantity, if that makes sense.
Now, obviously, this isn't like what I'm about to say isn't exactly all black and white and bad as it sounds, but do you think it's kind of like a numbers game?
What do you mean?
Like, for an extrovert, it's like you said, you want everyone to know you.
Oh, I see. Okay, I think I.
Yeah.
So sorry. What were you? So go on.
No, that was it. Like, if you know what I mean, like, go ahead.
So are you saying like a score almost? Like you want to know as many people to know as possible?
Yeah, without it being heartless, exactly. Because
I gotta admit, I don't really know what a numbers game is, but I'm assuming it's sort of like.
I want to know as many possible. I want as many people as possible to know me. I want to get all these likes and views on my.
No, I think that's definitely part of it, or at least not always like. I don't think it's not always like. I think some people are much more upfront with how with all relationships, regardless of whether it's a positive or negative one. Like I know people who are more extroverted than me, right? That will, I guess they'll very, very much not want to be around a specific person, and they have, no reservations about telling that person, I don't want to hang out with you because I don't like you. Like they don't have to sugarcoat it. And I feel like that much more falls on the, more like extreme side of extroversion than I am. Like if I don't like someone, I'm going to try and sugarcoat it and be polite about it,
Yeah.
So
I don't know.
I think just being less reserved like that can sometimes be an extroverted trait.
Yeah, I think less reserved is usually a thing for extroverts, but when it comes to like assertiveness, like how you described, I don't think that's exactly extroversion. It's like you probably think of it more along that line, but I think that's just like another trait, if that makes sense.
I mean that's sort of what I was getting at, is that it's just a trait of it. Like if we take James for example, I love James so much. I love him very, very much. But he has a very, very bad time with sticking up for himself, standing up for himself, and like giving any kind of pushback. Like he gets pushed around a lot. Not in like a bullying sense, but just like he'll do whatever people want him to do, regardless of whether or not he actually wants to. And so, yeah. but I, don't
mess with me.
No, not in like a threatening way, but I'm just like, hey, I'm not really up for this, or I'm not interested in this, and blah 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 blah.
Please leave now.
So I think assertiveness. I don't know. I guess when I think of assertiveness and introversion, I sort of think of an inverse relationship, and in that way.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not exactly sure, because I would think that, like, on one hand, I would think that I know, like, introverts that are pretty assertive. I mean, I'm pretty sure it is. I think it's not like they're tied to each other, but it might be more common. Is the thing. Like, it's more common for extroverts to be assertive.
Yeah, I mean, everyone is different, obviously. But I feel like, and on a much more important sense, everyone is different with everyone, with different people. Like, some people will be, like James, an introvert, for example, will be more assertive to people that they're close to, right?
Yeah.
As opposed to someone that they barely know. Because...
That makes sense.
They just feel more comfortable with it. So maybe I think being a more reserved or more I've been saying a diet version of yourself recently, a more diet version of yourself with different I guess levels of relationships that you have and different levels of friends you have, is a factor in that kind of assertiveness, or even just any personality trait, frankly.
Yeah. And that of itself is kind of an interesting topic, just like the idea of who you are, like, just like your persona, like the person
Oh,
you
absolutely.
are,
Yeah.
like one guy versus the next. You might actually appear more extroverted to some people.
Exactly. And that's kind of like where I fall, like
Yeah.
the thing I think about a lot is, there's some classes, right, where if there's a lot of people I know in there that I know like me to some extent, I'll try to be, a bit more funny because I know that I'll get a positive reaction out of it.
Yeah.
Like Mr. Crow's class. Can I say last names? I didn't say first name, so it's fine. The algebra class last year, that class I was able to be a bit more abrasive, I guess, right? But then my English class this year, there's a lot of people in there that are not in my friend group, and they're much more extroverted than I am, and so I sort of feel like I don't know, like I'm out of my league to a certain extent, and to them, I would appear very, very introverted and very, very quiet. So I think it depends on the environment that you're in as well, what people like appear to be.
I'm glad you mentioned that, because that is an interesting thing. It's almost like a hierarchy when it comes to extroversion. Like, the top dog, like, takes the cake, and when you're next to, like, you can be on the top of the town extrovert, but like if you sit next to somebody who's just like super like big personality, like you feel
like
so
dominating
small, dude.
the area.
Yeah. It's like,
and I think that's unique to extroverts as well. I don't think introverts have that kind of social dynamic, just because the majority of the time they either don't know each other and they don't want to interact with each other, or they already know each other and they know, they're comfortable with each other.
That's a great point, because it's like there's not really a hierarchy. I mean, first of all, they don't really interact often with each other unless they're like sitting next to each other or something. Like some sort of spark that brings them together. And while we were talking about classes, tell us about math class, because I think that's kind of an interesting like showcase of your quote unquote extroversion.
Okay, on the topic of hierarchies of like extroversion, stuff like that class was dominated by funny extroverts. Okay, and even here's an interesting thing, just on the topic of comfortability with extroversion, stuff like that. So they were like, I'd go so far as to say like 10 people in the class that would just make loud comments and funny jokes, and just to make the whole class laugh and stuff like that, which is a lot for a single class. When you have that many people trying to be funny, I'm sure it's a bit much to any introvert, but
when everyone's funny, no one is.
Yeah, but everyone was funny. That was the fun thing. But James is usually very introverted, but he was very, very. He was one of those people that was being funny in that class and putting himself out there. In that class.
So like kind of to describe that more, me and him are online, and I'm in that class too, obviously. He is
I was
the only
talking
one.
about algebra last year.
What was that?
I was talking about algebra last year, not pre-calc this year.
Oh, I'm talking about pre-calc.
Oh, well, whoops, go on with what you were saying.
But it's kind of the same thing. Like, in this year, pre-calc, James is like the only one who has his camera on. And,
that is true. He has his camera on for every class as well.
Well, I mean, that makes sense. But like in math, when it's 7:20 in the morning and everyone's in bed, basically, like James is just there and he's making conversation with the teacher.
He has energy that early in the morning. The amount of energy he has that early is impressive.
Yeah, and like it's weird because we were talking about like introverts and the hierarchy and everything, and it just completely shatters all of that because he puts himself out there, has a ton of energy. Like it's just weird. It's a weird phenomenon.
And who knows if he would act the same or different if he was in person as well. Maybe being online
the same thing.
Has a factor with that. Yeah.
Yeah.
Like de-individualize, whatever you said, earlier, that kind of behind the screen, not really there.
Yeah, that makes sense.
I don't know if that applies to that specific phrase, but you know what I'm saying.
Yeah, it's a little different, but I mean, still, he's not actually there. So, or maybe he is. What were you saying with algebra too?
Oh, I was just saying how one would assume that someone introverted like James would find themselves being kind of I don't know, daunting to be around that many extroverts
Yeah.
who like to be the center of attention, myself included, as much as
Uh-huh.
I may try to be better at that. Um, and yet, and maybe it is because I sat next to him and I would kind of push him to be funny and stuff like
Okay.
that he was able to open up a bit more. But I think it
Yeah.
was interesting that he was able to be one of the most extroverted people in that class, but really only in that class, to my knowledge.
Yeah. I mean, he had you, and didn't he have his other friends there
Yeah,
too?
there was Sakani and Pluto and all sorts of other funny people. But yeah,
Yeah. Funny people. It's like their own
funny.
category of people.
They were funny people. What a
Yeah, I
great
know.
class.
It's just like that's their
Yeah,
that's the
they're the
category
funny
they fit.
ones. They're the ones who make the laughter.
They're the ones who no, if they're the funny ones, they make the never mind.
What I'm saying is they create the laughter. The laughter is
No.
created from. Let's just roll with it.
Just shut up and go along with it,
You're
alright?
ruining my bit, Casey.
That's what I'm here to do. Alright, so kind of moving along back to you, we've talked about it's been like 15 minutes and we've just talked about James, even though I've talked about James more times than I did with the actual James episode. So if somebody watching this didn't watch that episode, they're gonna be like, "Who's James?
He's just
I
a
don't even
really
know what
funny person, you know?
He's just a really cool guy, guys." But kind of mirroring that video, I asked James, like, "Who are you at the party?" Like, you show up, what guy are you? What archetype, if you will? So I'm gonna ask you the same thing. You walk in, it's like prom night or whatever. You can have a theoretical date if you want, or you could just be with the boys or just
Oh my gosh, can I
by yourself.
really?
Yeah, you can create the scenario, but who are you at the party?
Okay, assuming this is like a party that has, let's say, like 20 to 30 people, like a good amount of people, right?
No, I'm talking about big party.
A
Well,
big
you
party.
can
Is
do
that not
big
a big
party and
party?
small party.
It goes to show what I think a big party is, to be quite honest. Are you okay? So are you saying like a dance?
Yeah, like a
Okay,
homecoming.
okay. So yeah, in that then, um, okay. So I guess I could just recite how I've entered every single dance, which is basically just like kind of make a fool of myself for a bit, right? Like on upon first entry, make a good
Okay.
first impression, right? But I'd say I'm kind of like the adapter if I had to put a label on it. Like I think as the night goes on, I become a lot more comfortable in my environment. Like I kind of, like at any dance. I don't know if this applies to every party. I don't really get invited to a lot of parties. I don't know if you know this, Casey, but assuming this applies, everyone kind of goes off in their own cliques and groups, and there's almost a geography to the layout of a party and stuff. So
Yeah.
I'm the person who scouts out. Okay, where are my friends? Where are the acquaintances? Where are the people I want to stay away from? That kind of thing.
Uh-huh.
And then as the night goes on, I become more comfortable in, I guess, my territory. You
Uh-huh.
know, um, I don't know. I become a much more out there person,
Yeah.
and yeah, and maybe that's true for everyone. Just you get to warm up. You feel more comfortable as the night goes on and stuff like that. But
Yeah.
I think I try to adapt to whatever I guess environment is around me,
Yeah.
and kind of tone it down for some people, and raise it up for others.
Uh-huh. I mean, there's kind of a novelty of just having everybody there because it's like you're hanging out with this clique, this tribe, and then you like move to another tribe and just kind of like seeing everybody.
Yeah, and honestly, there's a sort of like beautiful unity sometimes. Okay, because there's like some moments in a dance or a party because that everyone is a part of because they're all there, right? So they all have that shared memory together,
Uh-huh.
and then for a while they're all in the same friend group, if that makes sense. Like I remember last Last Dance. God, that was over a year ago.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, the final song they played was Country Roads, right? And so everyone was kind of singing together, swaying together, turning their phones on. And I remember several people that I don't hang out with very regularly, but I do know from some of my classes
Yeah.
were kind of like, yeah, Sam, sing it, stuff like that. Like people that I don't normally hang out with ever.
Yeah.
So I think there is a kind of unity in having those moments together, regardless of whether or not you're an introvert or an extrovert.
Yeah. And overall, they're just nice.
Yeah, they're fun.
Yeah.
I don't know if that quite answers your question or not, but
No, yeah, yeah, you did.
mhm.
I'm just kind of like, looking at my cheat sheet of like what's
You're
next.
mhm.
Um, so how would you say like we kind of touched on this, but like actually I'll ask you this question first. How do you fare with small talk?
Um, that's a good question. So one first of all, before I say how I do a small talk, one of the things I noticed and I actually noted down in the James episode was that you guys came to the conclusion that extroverts are better at small talk
Uh-huh.
and introverts like to talk about the big stuff.
Yeah.
And I don't quite know if that's true or not, just
Yeah.
because um, extroverts like to be very grandiose and put on a performance to some extent. And small talk is very much giving someone a diet version of yourself. Because you guys aren't at that level where you can quite be your complete selves. And I manage with small talk. I'm not great at it. Part of me does small talk differently because I'm kind of like because it makes me almost uncomfortable more than like big serious talk does. I
Uh-huh.
kind of just like get kind of ridiculous with it, if that makes any sense. Or I become very, very like enthusiastic about what they're saying, almost as a bit.
That's a
You
bit.
know, like
Like give me an
they'll
example
be
if
like,
you
"How was your day?" And they'll be like, it was fine." I'm like, "That's fantastic, dude. That's great." If that makes any sense, because
just kind of like turning the conventional conversation that goes nowhere into like a joke.
yeah. But the thing is, that's with people that like I don't know if this sounds rude or not, but that I care less about impressing,
Mhm.
or I don't really have any interest in getting to know better.
Yeah.
But the people that I find that the people I do want to get to know better and I want to establish a relationship with, I have a lot of difficulty keeping up conversation, which I often surprise myself because I'm really good at talking and not stop being talking, but yet sometimes I can find myself at a loss for words if I'm, trying not to seem uncool to this person,
Yeah.
which I think plays on the whole, giving like how extroverted you are depending on who you're in front of.
Yeah. Right, cuz I've noticed that I actually am I can be pretty good with small talk. Like I mean, not all small talk is, "Hey, how's your day? What's up? So the weather, huh?"
Yeah.
Like, it's not all about that.
Goddamn
It's
weather.
just, like, simple things like, "What'd you do today?" Like, simple, like you could say it's, like, diet version of yourself, but you're kinda just, like, curious about things that don't really matter on a grand scale, but you're just kinda, like, curious about.
Mhm.
Like, just like, "What'd you do today?" Like I just
Well,
said.
it definitely helps if you genuinely are curious about that stuff,
Yeah.
you
Well, I
know?
wonder if is that small talk? Like,
That's
what
true.
what is exactly small talk? Just
That's a good
airline food?
question. What is small talk? Is it just filling in the gaps between real conversation?
No, I think
Is
it's
it
like a starter, right?
I guess so, but sometimes if I find myself, like, looking for someone to talk to, and the only person I have to talk to is someone I'm not really close with, I'll try to make small talk, right? But
Yeah.
I don't really see it going anywhere. It's just something to pass the time, if that makes sense.
Yeah, and I mean, it's definitely like, say you meet a stranger, but they're neat and, like, they kinda say some things that you're interested in, and therefore you're interested in them. It's,
Mm,
like, a lot easier to, like I feel like your small talk starts as small talk to just kinda, like, introduce yourself essentially, But then, like, if you're genuinely curious about them, like if I didn't know you and I saw you filming, which is something you do, like I I would probably like ask you about it. And I don't know if that's small talk because
Are you in this scenario? Are you a stranger?
yeah, like if I
Okay.
didn't know you and I just saw what you were doing, like is that really small talk if I asked you
I
all
don't.
about like your filming?
I don't think so because that's not about because that's about something separate than the two of you. That's about a third party subject.
Okay.
If that
Yeah,
makes
that
sense.
makes
I
sense.
think small talk is about like is a very disingenuous surface level
Yeah.
relationship between two people.
Mhm.
And sometimes that
Yeah.
can blossom into something more, but I think a lot of the times it doesn't.
Yeah, sometimes it's like you gotta get the starter out of the way, and then you can talk about the real meaty conversations. And then
Mhm.
other times it's like, I have nothing to say to you. I don't know what to talk about. It's like, "Hey, how's it going?" "Oh, it's really good. How about you?" And then you're like, "Yeah, I'm good." And then
This
you know exactly,
no,
like,
I'm
you
already
felt
getting
that pause.
anxiety hearing this hypothetical conversation.
Exactly, because you've had many of them before.
And I okay, that's why if you want to like get to know someone well that you don't know very well, whether it just be hanging out with someone or even a date or something like that, I think
Mhm.
having a purpose first of
Yeah.
all, right? Like like doing something that has a purpose that you could both strive towards, and
Yep.
having a third party topic is great because by the end of that, by the time that that topic is over, right? You guys have already grown accustomed to and comfortable with each other's like um presence and who you are, and you guys are able to like have a conversation that is based on at least something.
Yeah, you have something to talk about,
Exactly. Yeah, exactly.
not just the weather, dude. Although I guess with James, you could talk about the weather with him.
You can ask him about the weather and he will tell you about it. You could not have a conversation about the weather.
Yeah, I don't think that, when I think of the weather, I guess my mind is just too cloudy to think of anything.
When I think of the weather, I think of canceling filming.
I was like I don't know what that was. I was, like, laughing, and then I, like, choked.
I heard that.
Yeah, that was weird.
You all right there?
So kinda tell us about what you do, because 'cause we've been, like, dancing around this topic of filming. I know it's kinda a little unrelated, but maybe it isn't at the same time.
I make movie.
Alright, guys, thanks for tuning in. No, 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 like, get into it.
um,
You're sales
get into what aspect of okay, if I guess I
I don't
can
know,
start
just
with just
tell
what
us
I'm
about what you do, like, how fun it is, how you work with people.
okay, so basically what I do a wide what I have done has changed. Um, okay, first of all, it's all been filmmaking related, obviously, but I think what I choose to make has changed over time. Because
Mhm,
okay, so first of all, my journey, if you want to call it that in quotations, started back in seventh grade because it was a school project. I asked my teacher, Mr. Rodriguez. Oh my gosh, what a great guy. Could hey, instead of doing a presentation on current events, can I make a video? Because and I don't even remember why I asked to do that. I genuinely don't remember what my motivation behind it was.
yeah,
But he was like, sure. So I made that video, right? And people thought it was funny, so I made another one and another one and another one. But they all for the whole school year, they were just almost out of necessity because they need to be class projects. But
mhm,
then, funny thing was, as we ended the school year and we didn't have any more projects, I kept making them because I had very loosely and very on a very basic level had established a narrative, right?
yeah,
And I couldn't rest until that narrative was resolved. And so that was the first time I think I did it for the sake of telling a story, for the sake of entertainment itself, as opposed to a project, you
yeah,
know? And
uh-huh,
then after that, there was a period of time where, excuse me, where I didn't do much. Like I went to a film camp and stuff like that, but I mostly just got bullied and ate food. And then it wasn't until the summer in between. But of course, during this whole interlude, I'm studying. I'm watching movies and watching videos and stuff. But I
You
didn't actually put
obviously
it.
didn't learn about the 180 rule.
Oh,
Inside joke. All right, continue.
hmm Uh, but I didn't actually put any of that stuff into practice again until James asked me, because he knew that I loved film. He
Mhm.
asked me if I could be a cinematographer, cameraman, or producer/producer for his short film, his English project over the summer in between sophomore and junior year.
That
Obviously, I
was
was like,
rough, huh?
yes, of course. And so we made a short film called The Greatest Gatsby, which it may be infamous depending on how well you know me and James and the people involved in that or not.
Uh-huh.
But it was basically a way for me to show off what I had learned so far, but in a very, very casual setting,
Yeah.
you know?
Like, it
So
wasn't, like, too serious.
no, absolutely not. Like dude, if you took a shot every time my hand or thumb was in the shot, you would die of blood alcohol poisoning. I swear. It's almost
Oh
embarrassing
god.
until you remember the context in which it was filmed.
So much for family friendly. A shot of, uh, seltzer water. That's the one.
Yeah, dude.
And of, rubbing alcohol.
Wait, hold on a minute.
That's the one. He's talking about ethanol, kids. Alright.
Mhm. But
Continue.
then so starting from that point on, I was much more interested in doing narrative stuff like that because I don't know, he had just inspired me so much with even though it was a ridiculous plot that made barely any sense, it was fun and it succeeded at its intention to the fullest capacity, which in my eyes makes it a masterpiece, but I won't get into that. Um
Yeah, it's got a
so
100% on Rotten Tomatoes. Don't mean to brag or anything, but
yeah. It's got a 67 on Metacritic, but don't worry about that. Uh,
yeah.
but so I'm trying to think what else I did in the meantime. Okay, well, first of all, I did a lot of writing. I've always been doing a lot of writing. But then I was almost duped. I was duped into making student news videos for our school's news program.
Okay.
And so I did not enjoy that because it wasn't narrative, and B, I hated it.
Why wasn't that A?
Because yes, save best for last. I don't know, dude.
Okay, fair.
But that was very much not what I wanted to do, but I still had fun with it. And I still okay for that gave me the opportunity to learn a lot about editing because we learned how to use Adobe Premiere and stuff like that. So it was sort of just like an exercise for me, but I didn't really I think the culmination of everything I've been working on so far is my
Did you
most
say
recent
culmination?
project. What was that?
Did you say culmination?
That's like the name of the podcast.
Alright, sorry, what were you saying? I buttered.
Sorry. Everything basically that I've been doing has been dang it, I can't say culminating.
Yeah, you're thinking I was like, "He's gonna think of the word."
Has all been
Coming together.
coming together to make my newest project, which is a 4-part series based on the Disney Channel show and internet meme Corey in the House. I don't know why I said internet meme. What am I, 35? Jesus. Um,
Is that one of those online caption pictures?
one of those dank memes, you know what I'm saying? But anyway, that has been very, very narrative, but it's also been very fun, and it's also had a lot of complicated editing. So it's like everything I've worked up to, everything I've done so far has been working up towards this.
Yeah, and it's kind of a nice thing because it's still wacky and crazy, but the way you're going about it is oddly enough, like, professional if you think about it.
I try. I am very
You try,
limited in my
yeah.
equipment and dare I even say talent, but it
It's also
is.
been a cursed development, though.
Oh my god! Because okay, so it started production in November. I started on the script in November of 2019, so it's been going on for over a year now.
And by the way, we're recording this on February 3rd, 2021, so it's
Yeah.
been a while. I mean, I know that the YouTube video will probably, like, say that anyway, but
For those of you in the future,
ooh.
So anyway, and then COVID hit, so I was like, oh, okay, we'll start filming once COVID is done. And how naive I was. So eventually, I was just like, okay, we're waiting too long. We have to get started, otherwise, it's never going to get done.
Yeah.
So we started filming in July of 2020, and we just filmed last Sunday, and we're still going. So
yeah,
it's been a time.
you can kind of see the end coming though.
No, yeah. Episodes 1 and 2 are officially done filming. Episode 3, after this weekend, will be done filming. Episode 4 only has one scene done now. So that is our next hurdle. But I've scheduled it out, so we should be done by the end of February. And then maybe we'll be able to premiere it sometime in March.
So, since we've been talking about this for a while, and thank you for sharing about it. To kind of tie it back, how would you say that like extroversion kind of helps you like with this project? Like just your nature of that.
I think probably reaching out to or getting a lot of resources and reaching out to people is probably the main thing where that helps, because and I think art is a very introverted, if you want to label it as one or the other, is a very introverted medium.
Okay.
But I think being extroverted definitely helps out with, I guess, ordering people around. Like a director's got to do that, and my patience has worn thin over the past year when it comes to that, I will admit. I've gone from being someone very meek and being like, hey, maybe let's try that one again, to being like, Sakani, I need you to go to that spot and say the lines, please, or I'm not going to drive you home.
Well, I saw you post a meme the other day in your chat for it, of just like an emoji with a hand reaching out saying, yeah, your Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, it's mine now.
Yeah, I just want to get it done, dude.
Right.
And so I think being extroverted has definitely, I guess, made me a bit more driven. If that not that an introverted person would give up at this. In fact, maybe they'd even get it done quicker than I would. But
yeah, well, I don't know. That might not be the same, like along the same lines. But what I've noticed is kind of just like, kind of how you already described this, but just like recruiting people and, like bringing the actors on stage and working with them, and you know what I mean?
Yeah, and there is kind of, I mean, I don't want to toot my own horn or anything or make me sound like I'm a god and I know what I'm doing, because frankly, I don't know what I'm doing and I'm learning. But being bold is definitely, I think, a necessity in terms of in terms of what I'm creating, something this large scale. You have to be bold to a certain extent. Like you just gotta like go to some place. What'd you say?
Can you elaborate on like what do you mean by bold?
I guess just kind of like just going for stuff, even if so. I guess driving a half hour to a set, or getting not getting permission and getting kicked off set multiple times and stuff like that, or like filming in the weather and just getting, I don't know, just getting out there in it, and being uncomfortable, being comfortable with the uncomfortability of it, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Because as a great man once said, filmmaking is hard work. And
wait, is that the quote?
That's the quote.
It's just filmmaking is hard work. I mean,
listen, he's not a terribly profound person.
All right.
But
well, yeah, it's just like you have to be ready for that. And also like kind of with extroversion, it's like you need to, because you need to film often. It's like if you were dealing with all these people all the time, like I could see an introvert becoming like drained from that after a while.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
But like this is kind of like fueling you again.
And I do get drained. I do get very tired and stuff like that. It weighs on me a lot. But
Well, I mean, that's for different reasons, though.
I guess so. But the other thing is that I kind of just like work through it, or just kind of get over it.
Well, I
you
mean,
know?
it's draining in the sense of like you have to work hard and you might have all these hurdles to bounce around. But like being there with your friends, like especially since most of them are your friends, rather than just like random actors.
Yeah, that does lend another layer of comfortability.
Yeah. But it does suck when you record something and then you're like, yeah, we're done. And then it's like, wait, we forgot a scene, or wait, you're looking at the camera.
I did that last Sunday. I still make that mistake. I was like, okay, we're gonna do the last shot first because then I can do the stuff in the middle later. And then I just straight up forgot the stuff in the middle. But it was fine because I was able to edit it all together. So
yeah.
And that's the other thing is I don't know if this is another symptom, if you want to say, of extroverts versus introverts, but I think a lot of introverts are perfectionists, and I think a lot of extroverts know when I guess something is good enough for the purposes at which it is, you know? Like there's been a lot of times where I'll be like, I'm just gonna say his name, Patrick will deliver a line very poorly, right? But it's the 5th take, and I know that he's not gonna do it any better. And so rather than waste our own time, I'm just like, okay, I know you
Wait, did he get to rehearse prior?
What'd you say?
Like, did he get to rehearse prior?
Oh yeah. They've had the script for months.
But did he rehearse?
No.
I was waiting.
No. People get up they get in camera and they go, "Hey Sam, what do I say?" And then I tell them, and then they say it wrong. I'm like, "Good enough." And then you just rinse and repeat for about a year and a half.
Yeah.
But you know, it's okay, because if I strived to, if I forced people to do it exactly the way I want it, and I never compromised, it wouldn't get done. It just wouldn't get done. In a time like this, where people want to be, people want to get home quickly, and they don't want to be around, 2 large groups of people for very long and stuff like that. It's good to just say, okay, this is good enough for the purposes of which I need it to be.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't think an introvert would be able to make those kind of, I shouldn't say wouldn't be able to, but most introverts would not be able to make those kind of compromises.
Maybe. I mean, it is a lot of like different traits at play, so I don't think it's I don't think it's as much of a coalition of traits. But I do kind of see what you mean by just like they might be more shy to do that, like don't want to be like, sorry guys, but I have to just like cut this, or you can't do this, or
Mm-hmm. But it's another thing about how it varies from person to person. Like with someone like Sakani, right, who I know can do better because he's very talented.
Mm-hmm.
I'll be a bit more abrasive, and I'll push him a bit more than I would push other people, because I know that he can take it. But with some people, if you can sense that they're getting frustrated and they're not having fun, then you just want to get it done quick, because the last thing you want is someone to drop out at this stage in the game.
Yeah. Or also to just like act poorly, like even more poorly.
Exactly. Yeah, you don't want to overwork someone.
Yeah. That makes sense.
I mean, I guess I could feed him as well, but
yeah, when you keep them in your dungeon, you gotta feed them.
Budget's tight, dude. I don't know what I'm saying. I have like $300 in Amazon gift cards.
And it's all for me.
Yeah, dude, they can't have any of that.
Can't have any of it.
They'll get a pizza at the end of filming to commemorate it all, and that's about it.
A small pizza, though.
Yeah, they can share.
They can share.
Yeah, it's from
I'm not
Donato's.
I'm not buying a large for them. Let me see. I'm just looking at my questions. So, it's been a while since we brought up James, but I kind of wanted to do this again just because we talked about this in the other video, but this is like circling back and doesn't have anything to do with this. But how do you think like your dynamic kind of works with you being an extrovert and him being like a super introvert. Like, explain the dynamic in that regard.
I don't think there's a set dynamic, but I think a lot of the times what'll end up happening, because it depends on the scenario, but I think I push him to be a lot more spontaneous and bombastic and stuff like that, because that's how I am. Like I'll be driving in Blue Ash, and I'll stop by his house. I'll be like, James, want to go get ice cream? I'll be like, Hammy, I need to finish the dishes. Like I'll put a bit of pressure on him to stick up for himself and stuff like that, to push back a little bit more, and then B, to I guess be more like me. I don't know if that sounds like a asshole thing to do or not, but
well, like in what way?
Just like to be more spontaneous and to be more laid back and less tightly wound when it comes to some things.
Yeah.
But also to relax about other stuff. Like, I find that it's not specifically that I'm always relaxed and he's always stressed out, or the other way around. Like, it just so happens that a lot of the stuff that he takes very seriously, I'm very laid back about, and a lot of stuff I think he should take more seriously, he has less interest in.
Yeah.
And so I think we are very, very opposite when it comes to that kind of thing, which I think is also very funny that we're so close because of it.
Well, right, but you're also complements in that way.
That is true. Opposites attract and all that.
Well, not just that, but like your weaknesses, like he helps you with those, because those might be his strengths.
That's true. He can stop me from going too far, and I can push him to go a bit further with some stuff. Trying to think of another example of I don't know, another one of our dynamics. Okay, one thing that happens is we can sort of become. By the way, am I allowed to swear on here? I never asked.
No, actually.
Oh, because I've done it like 3 times. Whoops.
Have you?
Yes.
Oh.
Okay.
I didn't realize.
I just say it so naturally, dude.
I've said damn once in the other video.
Well, now you've said it twice, idiot.
Now I said it twice.
Okay, well, I'll censor this for now. Sometimes me and him can sort of get caught up in like an echo chamber of tomfoolery instead of the other word, and just kind of like stupidity, right? Where we kind of rev each other up and incite one another to get more and more stupid and to come up with like worse and worse ideas. And sometimes it's just to blow off steam, if we're frustrated about something. And then, by the end of it, neither one of us actually goes and does it.
And none of you win.
Truly, none of us wins. Neither of us win. But, I don't know. We complement each other in the best ways sometimes, but then other times, because we are friends and we do share similar qualities, such as our humor and our level of stupidity and social awareness.
Yeah.
We can sort of get caught up in that, I guess, exponential curve of dumb ideas.
Yeah. Well, wait, how does that relate exactly? How do you tie that into the dynamic?
I think just that even though we're, I'm extroverted and he's introverted, that there is a common ground in terms of like when we get frustrated. I think we find a very common ground in terms of assertiveness and passiveness.
Well, that just might be more temperament, but it is
that's true.
It's always interesting to see the
But where is the relation? Is there a relationship between temperament and okay, here's a quick question, just on sort of off topic. What is the term for introversion and extroversion? Like, what is the term for that schema? Temperament has to do with like, are you passive or aggressive or stuff like that. But what is the overarching term for being an extrovert or an introvert?
Like, just the definition?
Yeah, how do people group them?
I'm pretty sure all it is, like, even though we've talked about a lot of, like, for a lot of moments here, just kind of stuff, like bringing in temperament and assertiveness and everything. I think strictly the definition is just where you get your energy from. So like introverts need to recharge after dealing with people. Like they
I guess I was
feel
kind of looking for like a word that maybe they both fall. Okay, so like let me give you an example. Okay, so how would you say is a aggressive? Is that like a temperament? Is that a specific temperament?
I think so.
Okay,
I
so
do kind of see what you're saying. I
aggressive
think it's
is
just
to
energy.
temperament as introvert is to
This is energy.
energy. Just energy?
Yeah, it's just
Okay.
like your energy levels.
I forget the original comment I was gonna make because I was just curious about that.
Yeah.
Whoops.
But that's I think that's the word that you're kind of looking for.
Mhm.
Um well, it's just kind of interesting cuz this podcast isn't educational or factual by any means. Uh but I don't exactly want to leave wrong information, but to just kind of clear things up. Um I think it is just strictly energy levels. While like temperament and other things are different because like if you look at like Myers-Briggs or just Big 5
Mhm.
like personality traits, it's like extroversion and introversion is like one category and then other traits make up other parts of you. So like there's assertive introverts and there's like sheepish extroverts. So I mean, the only reason why I didn't really say that sooner was just cuz like I thought it was an interesting topic to kind of think about because maybe there is more of a correlation than we think.
Mhm.
So that's why I didn't want to rule it out, you
Yeah.
know? Like if you think about percentage, like probability of like someone extroverted like having those assertive traits, it's like what if that's more common than an introvert having those traits? I don't know. There's probably a definite answer out there and we didn't really do our research priorhand.
No,
But I
Casey,
mean,
I
then
am
again,
completely talking out of my A word right now, dude. I don't know what I'm talking about. I'm just going for it.
well, I mean, we're just talking. Like this is I
Yeah, I
like
just don't want you to think I'm stupid because I'm trying to find these correlations between stuff that are completely unrelated.
I don't know, you're not stupid. It's just like it's this podcast, it's not really meant to be educational, but just like here's these big ideas that all lead
Mhm.
into like, becoming your best self and whatnot. That's kind of why that's the whole purpose. But I mean, the reason why we want to find like our best self is just because we're just really at the end of the day, most of us are just amateurs. We're not like PhD psychologists who know the definitions of everything. We're just like regular people, just like we don't know everything. So there probably is a definite answer out there. If I looked it up, like just like started clicking on my keyboard, I could find the answer. But
Mhm.
at the end of the day, like it's just interesting to hear regular people talking about these subjects, you know?
Regular people, who do you think you are? Think you're different? Stop sipping that chamomile tea or whatever smart people drink.
Try filtered water.
Tri-filtered, as in it was filtered 3 times.
No.
Oh
I didn't think that's where you were going with it. It was
no,
like, "Oh, maybe
I was
that."
making a number joke. No? Okay, cool.
Yeah, no, it wasn't really, wasn't
I'll
no.
be here all night.
For another, 6 minutes or so,
Mhm.
towards the end of this. Let me see. I'm looking through my questions again. Do you have anything you wanna say?
Well, where do you fall? I know you said that you kind of fall in the last episode. I know you said you were sort of in between,
Oh,
similar to me, but a bit more. Like
yeah,
on a scale, where would you put yourself? Like, do
I'm
you lean
really
one way
glad
or the
you
other?
said that because I remember, um, in that episode, I, like, brought that up, and I specifically said, "I'll get into this in that episode," so now I'll get into it. I kind of said last time that I kind of work in waves, like 2 weeks in a period. I'm just like introverted. I don't want to talk to anybody. I just kind of want to play my video games, do my work, and read. Like, honestly, I feel like I'm a bit more like, well, I'm more reserved, obviously, but I usually like working on myself in those moments.
Mhm.
Like, just like reading something or researching just on my own merit or whatever. Um, but then I have extroverted weeks, which is kind of like these past few weeks, like starting the podcast and whatnot, where I'm just kind of extroverted. Like I'm a lot more excited, a lot more energetic. I can talk to a lot of people and not really feel drained. I mean, sometimes I do if it's like too many people, but I like get back up and everything. I feel like it's a time where I'm very innovative. Like I want to make things happen. I want to be like I learn creative things during my introverted weeks, but then I apply them in these weeks.
Mm.
Um, and it's just kind of like it goes back and forth and whatnot. But yeah, when I get like this, it does make me question what I actually am. Because sometimes there are moments of introversion where my posture isn't really the best. I'm looking downwards, like I might not give you eye contact. Like I'm just extremely awkward, like painfully awkward.
Yeah.
Like it sucks when those moments happen because I know that I'm not awkward other times. But then there's other moments where I'm just like on the top of my game. Like I'm quick wit, I'm clever, I'm funny, like I'm the man. Like and that's not bragging, it's just like it's just kind
No,
of
it's a
how
state
it
of
is.
mind.
Yeah. I also noticed that I think the way I think is different when I'm in that extroverted side. Like it's kind of spontaneous like you think, but or like you said earlier. But it's more like I don't overthink and I think in terms of I'm going to do this rather than I'm going to overthink this and plot everything through. You know what I mean?
Mm.
Like it's just a very like I'm going to take action right now and this is how I'm going to do it. No second guessing. It's kind of like that. So yeah, it is
Yeah.
interesting.
So on the just kind of the in betweenies, which is I guess the we you got introverts, and in betweenies is what we can
Well, it's
call
called ambivert,
them. I like in betweenies better, but okay.
although it's like technically not a thing.
Um, I noticed we're almost out of time, so I just want to throw this complete curveball out there
Okay.
and just get your thoughts on it real quick, okay? And by the way, this is me speaking on no research whatsoever.
Okay.
What if, because we talk so much about how people are different depending on the scenario, depending on the people, depending on the environment, depending on the time, whatever, right? People change how they, and whether or not they're extroverted or introverted constantly, depending on what's going on around them and what their mental state is.
Mhm.
When something like that wavers so frequently and so often, who are we to say that it even exists? Like the idea of introversion versus extroversion, right? Who's to say that there really is this, that either one of them is really relevant, or even like a real thing that is worth studying? Why can't it just be like, why are these two labels chosen, these two extremes, and why is it not um, people who get their energy based on this type of interaction, or this specific environment or stimulus and stuff like that?
Sure.
Because when something wavers to that extent, you have to wonder, why is it that I fall on introvert when I'm bombastic and crazy and extroverted this frequently every once in a while?
So to kind of answer that, there's a few things to mention. For one, introverts can act kind of like an extrovert, but it's not really extroversion because they're more likely to act like that, like how you would perceive an extrovert to be if they're around their close friends. Like they're out of their shell because they're comfortable with them. But with a ton of people, it's like no. So it's kind of like it's kind of a tricky thing. It makes you think that they're extroverted, but they're not. Um, Another thing is you kind of I think it's the big answer to that is just consistency. Like Sure, we're
Mhm.
always different depending on the situations and the time and who we're talking to, but it's just like the consistency of overall, do you feel drained after dealing with people, or does that fuel you? It's like it's consistent. Like even though I mentioned waves, I think overall I'm an introvert. Like I'm pretty close to the extrovert border, but at the end of the day, like when I'm extroverted, I can do things that some introverts just cannot do. So I'm different in that regard.
You're just built
But
different.
but I have like limits that are noticeably like on the side of introversion.
Mhm.
So does that kind of answer your question?
I guess so. I'm just wondering what the real, I guess, science behind it is. But I guess that's something I can discover on my own.
Yeah.
And I'm sure I will discover this year in psych and stuff.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah, I forgot you're taking AP Psych.
Yep.
Yep. Well,
I have
anyway.
some notes due tomorrow.
Yeah, sorry for keeping you so long, but we're about to wrap this up. So, well, thanks for joining me, man.
Of course, yeah. It's a fun time.
Yeah, I haven't been this fun in the podcast so far. Like, no, like I've been a little stiff or awkward at points, but I don't know. This was.
I guess you just needed an extrovert to bring out that extrovertedness in you, Casey. That's
Maybe.
right. Reincorporation, baby.
Maybe. With that said, I'm really proud with how this series has been going so far. We got this new mic that you've been
Hey.
hearing now, so I don't sound like arse.
Mm-hmm.
See, it's not cursing because I said arse. But
I mean, it's technically a curse word in Britain, so
is it?
I have no clue.
Do you have a source for that? Yeah, but anyway, I'll end this off here. So thanks for watching, and I'll probably see you next time for the next episode. So I'll see you next time. Enough with the awkward outro. Goodbye.
Bye.